Everyone pretend podcasting isn't boring.
Welcome to Juan Around the Podcast. Today we go around the talk with Emory Mugalian about white privilege, teenagers in the showbiz, the right instrument for you, record labels versus streaming services, the structure of music, traveling and learning to adapt, and many other topics. I hope you like the episode. But first remember, Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. It is free, has everything you need to record and edit audio using your smartphone or computer. You can even make money through ads. With one click, your content goes to Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, and many other platforms. So download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm. That is ANCHOR.FM and start today. Now, let's turn around to our chat. Emory, what does your name mean, Emory?
It doesn't really have a meaning, I don't think. I've never looked it up, but it's an old American name. It was really common during the Civil War time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there were a lot of people named Emory back then in the Midwest, Kansas and the South especially also.
Okay.
But I think originally it comes from Hungary, I think, but it was different. It was Amri, A-M-R-I.
Okay.
And it just as when immigrants came to America, then they changed the spelling and stuff, and it became Emory.
But your family is coming from Hungary?
No, that's just where the name originally comes from, I guess. I'm not really sure how.
Where does your family come from?
My mom's side of the family is American, just European American. They've been in America for a long time, a really, really long time, since before it was even a country.
Have you ever tried to do those DNA tests and shit?
Not really, because there's always on both sides of my family, there's always been a lot of interest in that stuff. So my mom's mom, my grandma, she has done a lot of research to find out about the history of our family on that side. So my grandma, my mom's mom, her parents or her grandparents came from Austria or Bavaria, in the 18th or 17th century, and so she knows a lot about them because she found a lot of newspaper articles that were written about them. They came out to Kansas before it was a state, so they were what they called homesteaders. They came out and they were living on the frontier, living with the Indians and living, in the wild, basically. There were no cities, there were no towns, basically. It was just...
Holy!
They
So
were
they
just
were
trying
pioneers.
Pioneers, yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of articles that were written in the years after that about people who were pioneers, and so she was able to get a lot of information about them. So my mom's side of the family has been in the country for a very long time. My grandma even traced it all the way back to, John Smith from Pocahontas.
Yes.
We're related to his brother. We're descended directly from his brother.
I just read that Pocahontas, when she was 13 or something.
Yeah.
She used to do
Cartwheels?
Cartwheels to entertain them naked.
The English? Yeah. That's crazy.
That's crazy fucked up shit.
Yeah, it is. It's all fucked up. I mean, I don't know. It's cool to be related to
some
historical figure, but also at the same time, it's a dark history at the same time, because they were the ones who came and started the whole process of colonization and stuff like that.
Yeah, but it's what's up with that shit? Right now in the United States, it's so much into point this idea of, you need to feel ashamed of what your
It's not ashamed, it's just recognition. Just recognizing also the privilege that brings you, Okay. The only reason people can use these words like white privilege is because of the actions that were taken hundreds of years ago and that turned America and North America into a society for white people, because it wasn't before.
But do you feel that you have white privilege?
I mean, of course I do. If you look at me, I look like a white person.
Yes.
Right? So, because I am half white. My mom's side of the family comes from Europe.
Yes.
I am half white, but my dad's side of the family is Armenian.
Okay.
Right? So that's different. That's not white. Well, it depends who you would ask. But Armenians come from the Middle East. My dad's side of the family comes from Turkey. You know, that's not really a place where white people come from. You know,
okay.
So I always, growing up, it's complicated because like the only reason I was born in America was because my great-grandmother on my dad's side had to escape a genocide in Turkey. And she survived the march through the Syrian desert. And she survived her family and her friends being murdered. And she made it to America. And so that's the reason I was lucky enough to be born in America, because she survived.
Yes.
So is that a privilege? That I get to be American because I lost a whole section of my family? You know, like, it's an interesting question, right?
I think, in my point of view, it's not that I'm saying that everybody is kind of like ashamed of their heritage, but I definitely have seen some like extremes where people is like, oh my God, like we have done some terrible things. But at the end of the day, like, how are you responsible? Like one thing is like acknowledge, as you said, but other thing is like feeling like bad about what happened.
No.
And I don't know, like on the other hand, like, do you think that your life for like an American life is a life of privilege?
I mean, definitely.
Okay,
like,
without
sense? Question. Because, well, I mean, it's like, okay, we're here in Albania right now, right? Mm-hmm. And every person I've talked to, like, they just talk about how, oh, the economy in America is good. So you have a good job and you make good money and you're able to live. And it's like, yeah, that's true. Like, it is true. I don't think about it very much, but like, yeah, I have to work hard, but I do make enough money to live and survive and support myself. And I have work, right? Yes. And like a lot of people here don't have that luxury, you know? Okay. It's not as easy to just find work.
Okay, but do you think that is a privilege of color or is a privilege of nationality?
Well, the way you phrased it was like, do you feel privileged as an American? And so like all Americans, whether they're black, white, Mexican, you know, Asian, Indian, Middle Eastern, if you live in America, you benefit from living in a country that has that good of an economy and has that many jobs available. You can find work. You know, not everybody is lucky and a lot of people struggle, don't get me wrong, but there's still jobs available for the most part. Now, then the other part of it is also definitely true. I do have privilege from being half white and being visibly white. You know, even if I was full Armenian, there's a lot of Armenians who are full Armenian who look more white than I am. They're more pale than I am, and they're more what you would say, quote unquote, white looks like. But they're Armenian. They're full Armenian, and at least for me, I don't consider Armenians white. I don't think that's a part of the world where white people come from, especially if you define whiteness as, you know, European purely, or Australian or British or whatever, right?
Okay.
Like, so I benefit definitely from not having the danger of someone looking at me and saying, oh, that guy's not like us. Okay. So we're going to target him, right? Like,
okay. Does it happen too often in the United States?
I mean, I live in Los Angeles, so there's definitely racism in Los Angeles. It exists. But I've never witnessed like a hate crime or something like that, you know, where someone is explicitly targeted because of the color of their skin. But it does happen in America and other parts of the country. I mean, there are still places in America where it's not safe to travel alone as a black person, you know? Okay. So it definitely is something that I'm conscious of.
Like which cities?
I mean, I don't think I could name them off the top of my head, but there's just certain parts of the country where you wouldn't want to be. And like even a place that seems really progressive, like Portland, for example. But in the state of Oregon, there's like, Oregon was originally founded as a whites only state. And black people weren't allowed to live there until like the 30s or something like that. Like it's pretty crazy. And the state still has a lot of residual leftover effects from that. There's a lot of people in Portland who hold on to that kind of like white supremacist outlook. Maybe not as much in Portland, but in the rest of the state, in the backwoods, you would say, like the more rural areas. And even Portland too, like it has this idea of being like this hippie, free, progressive city, but it's also one of the least diverse cities in the country, especially for the West Coast. There's not a lot of people who come from other places there, so it's kind of this interesting thing.
After going through some rain, the best thing that we can do is just come into our room because, the rain is really
just like that,
really loud. How do you like the beer here?
It's good actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You like it?
Yeah, I like Pilsner a lot. So, a beer that just has a really plain taste. Not plain, but like, you know what I mean? There's not too much funny stuff going on. I kind of hate the whole like craft beer.
Like Belgium kind of thing.
No, I like Belgian beer. Like Duvel, you know that one? It's like.
But do you like, for example, like the Trappist and like those that are like.
Yeah, that stuff's good.
Okay.
Because it has like the tradition behind it at least. Like I don't really like IPA so much. Mm-hmm. They're okay. Like you could drink one, but then after a while it just gets like it's too much.
For the people that are listening, we had to really run away from the rain because it was like messing with the audio. But yeah, like right now we're still like in the last episode. We are in Tirana in Albania, and I'm doing a workaway in a hostel, and I'm with Emory, which is who is basically also doing workaway with me. And well, he's not only a workawayer, he's also a drummer in the band Chatrooms.
Yes.
Which actually has very good music, and I added to my playlist Around Europe 2.0. So if you want to check that out, the 2 songs are there, and you can check the rest in the description, right? Like in every song, it can lead you to the artist or something.
Yeah, you just click on our name, and then we're on Spotify.
It's very good music. Like how did you approach to music?
How did I get started?
Yeah.
Well, my dad is a professional drummer, and he's been playing drums for the better part of 50 years, pretty much. And so I was always around music growing up, and it was a really big part of my childhood, just listening to all the music that him and my mom listened to. My mom was really into music too. She was like, in the 80s, she was like into punk rock and stuff like that, and she saw like the Dead Kennedys, and she saw The Clash in New York, and she saw Queen at Madison Square Garden in 1982, which must have been just fucking awesome. So we were always kind of a musical family, so to speak. And when, I had always dabbled like in guitar when I was little and done some other things, but I didn't really get serious until when I was around 12 years old. Some people came into the guitar shop that my dad was working at, and they were putting up flyers saying they were looking for a bass player for their son, or the lady who was hanging up flyers, I'm not sure who it was, might have been someone who worked for the family. But basically this kid, Bruno Mascolo, had a band, and his parents were pretty wealthy. They had a couple houses in Malibu and another house in Texas. They were part of that big like hair product company, this hair product company called Bedhead that makes like shampoos and like hair products and stuff. So they were pretty wealthy, and they were like helping their son get a band started, which was a pretty cool thing for them to do. They really supported him. And so they're putting up flyers saying they're looking for a bass player, and my dad asked like, what age, range is this? And Bruno was, I think, a year older than me, so he was already 13, and they said, it's for teenagers or young teenagers. And my dad said, my son plays bass. And I had never played bass before, really, in my life at all.
He said it.
He just said it because he thought it would be a good opportunity, and he figured I'd be able to learn. And he was right. So I went and like auditioned, and I had never really played bass, but they just taught me the songs. And the first night that I went up there to their place in Malibu, I learned 4 songs on the bass, and we performed for like a house party that the parents were throwing. And it just felt really natural, I really enjoyed it. And then I didn't hear from them for a few months after that. And then they called me one day when I was out skateboarding, and it was Bruno, I think, actually on the phone, and he asked me if I wanted to join the band. And that was sort of my first experience playing music in a band. We started like writing music and stuff together, and he wrote a lot of the songs, and he had like a catalog of songs that he'd already written, and we came up with a band. They had a band name, but then we came up with a new band name, and we played a bunch of shows, like some pretty big deal shows. Like we played at the Avalon in Hollywood, opening for Lily Allen. Do you remember her? She was like a pop artist from the mid-2000s, and we played at the Long Beach Arena, which is like a stadium that seats like, I don't know, 14,000 people or something like that, or some like big number of people. And there was like, where else did we play? We played at a bunch of places. We played at the House of Blues one time.
Again, how old were you in that point?
12 and then 13 through most of this time. Yeah. So like being a 12-year-old or 13-year-old and playing in front of a crowd of like 7,000 people at one point was pretty crazy. And like we went to Vegas a handful of times, like 2 or 3 times. I can't quite remember. We played a couple shows in Vegas, and they even flew us out to London once. We played 2 shows in London, which was pretty fucking awesome. I mean, like, it was just a really cool experience, and it taught me a lot, not just about like playing music, but like also just how to be, you know, responsible in a way, and sort of like how to deal with people. And there was a lot of like weird politics going on with the band, like just like the mom of the singer, the boy Bruno, like she like thought I didn't like her for some reason, and I was like, I don't know, I've barely said like 2 words to her, I don't really know, you know, like it's a weird thing to hear as like a 13-year-old. Yeah, it's like, why would I not like this adult? Like I don't, and she's done so much for us. Like like it was pretty crazy. Like I think there is like, when you're that young and you're put into a situation like that, like you can kind of like not take it for granted, but think that that's normal. Like when we would go practice in Malibu 3 times a week, and they would like send a guy out to pick me up from school, and we would practice Wednesdays, Fridays, and Fridays we would all sleep over at the house that they had up there, and then on Saturday we would practice all day too. Like all day we would practice, working on our songs, getting our set down tight. And they like really waited on us. They had like assistants and stuff who, they didn't work for us, but they worked for the family. And they would like, when we were hungry, they would go out to McDonald's or KFC or whatever and bring us back a whole bunch of food, or pizza or whatever. And I mean, these people were rich. Well, like, I don't know how rich. I don't know how I would put it into perspective, because I grew up pretty poor. And so it was
definitely white privilege right there.
Yes. But like, so they, you know, you just go into the kitchen and they'd have a whole refrigerator that was just full of Dr. Pepper and nothing else.
What?
Yeah, you know, like, or like part of the refrigerator,
I mean,
or
it's
something.
Crazy that it's not Coca-Cola.
Yeah, there would be Coke too, but also Dr. Pepper. I don't know, back then I liked Dr. Pepper more than Coke. Now I like Coke.
Yeah.
But it was just, you know, it was like you feel a little bit spoiled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it go to your head? Like,
maybe it did at the time. Maybe that's why they thought I was like getting an attitude or getting an. I honestly couldn't tell you if I was or not, but I didn't feel like I was. I felt like I was still the same person. Just it was like, oh, cool. There's like free stuff. I mean, there'd be like a big bowl of like candy left over from Halloween, and you could kind of just like take as much as you want. Yeah. And they had some really cool guys that they hired to like, not babysit us, but like work with us and help shape us as musicians. Yes. So one of these guys was this guy Dennis, who used to play in this band called Lit. Okay. He was the bass player. They were pretty big in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And he would drive out from like Pomona, California, which is fucking far away from Malibu. And he would pick me up from either school or my house and drive me all the way to Malibu, you know, which is not an easy drive. And then he would drive me home when it was all done. And he would stay and hang out, and they would help us write songs. And then the other guy was this guy Kenny, who was a drummer for this band called Sugar Cold, who were like kind of a big like pop punk band. And we actually that's who we opened for when we played at the House of Blues. I'm pretty sure we opened for them. Maybe I'm misremembering that. It might have been some different bands.
Now, how does it feel? Like, you don't remember if you were like like feeling like things were going to your head, but did you feel like special? Like you feel different than the neighbors? How is it?
I don't know. I mean, I definitely got a little like cocky because I was like, at that time, I always joke that like, you know, there's this joke in American culture that like the guys who peak in high school, like they're on the football team or they're the quarterback or something, and then after high school they become losers because they don't know how to like deal with not being popular anymore or something like that. And I always joke that I peaked in middle school because that's like the grades from like 6th to 8th grade. Yeah. And then you know, because in middle school I was like a skateboarder, and that was like when I was pretty good at skateboarding. I didn't skate as much in high school as I did in middle school, and I was really popular not only at my own school but in this little town that I lived in Los Angeles. Like I didn't go to the school in that town, so like there was this kind of like, I don't know if you could say like an air of mystique. Like I'd go out skating and stuff and people would be like, oh, who's that kid? That's that skater kid who goes to school in Santa Monica, but he doesn't, you know, go to school here, but he lives here. And like I had a lot of friends outside of the school that I went to, and it was like this, I don't know, so it's like, it's like those were like some really good times in my life. I was playing in this band and we were traveling, going to Las Vegas, going to London. I mean, that's like, how many 13-year-olds are doing that? You know, not very many. But I don't know. I never had this feeling of like, oh, I'm better than other people. At least not the way that I remember it. And I don't think I acted like that, at least for the most part.
And do you miss those times?
I mean, no, because, you know, I'm an adult now and like I'm almost 30 and like that was a long time ago and it's not healthy to like live in the past, right? You know what I mean? Like, but they were good times. I appreciate them for what they were and what they taught me. You know, they taught me how to realize like, oh, like even if I don't think I'm acting a certain way, people might perceive you in a certain way and think that you're being this way or that way, right? Because eventually the band thing kind of fell apart for me. It was a whole complicated situation, but basically we tried to get a record deal with Geffen Records. Okay. That's the company that had Nirvana and like stuff like that, like really big acts. And the parents of the lead singer, the people who ran the whole thing essentially and funded it, they brought Peter Paterno, who was a really big music lawyer and just like big time lawyer. He's the one who did the Napster case. Okay. When Napster got sued by like Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake. Okay. And he drew up a contract for us to sign as a band, like individually and as a band. And before we could sign it, you know, my dad, like I said, is a musician, so he was like, I'm going to have one of my buddies take a look at this and like see what's what with this contract. Like obviously I was like, oh, yeah, cool. Sounds good. Like, I don't know what it means, but you know, and there were some things in the contract that were like, okay, if we take any pictures of you or use any footage of you for anything, for promotional material or whatever, we can make money off of that, but you don't have any right to get paid off of it, right? So it's like they could use my picture in a magazine and I wouldn't get paid. And like anything that we wrote together as a band, even if I wrote something and we used it, the lead singer, their son, owned all the rights to all the music, like no matter what. So there were some things that were like, okay, it doesn't seem like this is good for the kids, right? And so the drummer at that time, his parents refused to let him sign the contract and they pulled him out of the band. And then I didn't outright say I wasn't going to sign it, but my parents definitely didn't want me to sign it. And so it was like kind of in limbo for a few months. And then one day out of the blue, I got a phone call from Bruno and he said that they were going to have to kick me out of the band. And I don't, you know, on the phone, it was kind of rude. On the phone, he told me it was because I was an asshole.
But clearly because of the contract.
I mean, they never told me that outright, you know, so it was just one of those things like, maybe I was kind of being an asshole. Maybe I didn't realize the way I was behaving. He was like, oh, you're selfish and you're an asshole.
But they give you a contract in the first place to check it. So it kind of, and then they check your contract.
It seemed like they just wanted people who were going to play ball, you know, and that's what my parents always told me too, you know, whether it was to make me feel better or whatever. And I was pretty hurt about it for a while after that.
What happened with that band?
they went on to do some, they went on like Warped Tour a bunch of times, and they went on a couple big tours, and they had I don't know, not really any amount of success that means anything in the big picture, but they kept going for a little while, and then I think, I don't know, sometime around maybe 2010, maybe, Bruno, I think, decided that, like, you know what, I don't want to, like, have my parents controlling everything anymore, and I want to try and do this on my own. So, yeah, everybody just kind of went their separate ways, and I sort of stayed in contact with some of them. Yeah. The drummer who quit before I did, or whose family pulled him out, like, we kept in contact on and off over the next, little while, and I saw him as recently as probably 2014 or 15. And then the guitar player who was playing with us, this guy named Jason, he actually plays in a band now called Beachwood Coyotes, who are really good, and they're doing a lot of really cool things right now. And, I would not run into him, but I've seen him once or twice since the band all broke up, and I saw him at a show that I was playing with my current band, like maybe in 2016 or 17, and I was like, oh shit, I haven't seen you in like almost 10 years or something like that. So, but his band are doing really cool things, like they're making music videos and putting out music all the time. He's a really good songwriter, so yeah, it just...
But for you in that moment, it really hurt.
It did. I couldn't really understand why, because I didn't understand the reality of the contract being the breaking point. So, and I think maybe it was a poor choice of words to be like, it's because you're an asshole. Like, they probably could have come up with something better to say. Yeah. Like, because I kind of internalized that, and I was like, well, what did I do wrong? Like, I didn't think that I...
And you were young. It's just incredible how ruthless the world of entertainment is, particularly for young people. Like, it's incredible. Like, actors and like any kind of artist is just like, it's not a corralling place. Like, it's ruthless in some way.
Yeah, and they were definitely trying to, like, I don't know, it was one of those things where it's like, I don't know, like, the mom was like really invested. I mean, obviously they'd put a lot of money into it. I mean, they had a recording studio in the house, like in the basement, like a top level, like, and like soundproofed rooms and stuff. And they had Pro Tools and like, Macs, computers and stuff. And like, we would just have an idea, and then we could just go into the studio and record it. Right. So like, we were constantly making our own stuff. And so that's why it was kind of, I don't know, like, because towards the end of the time there, I sort of started to flex my muscle a little bit as a songwriter. I was starting to come up with ideas and writing things on the bass and being like, oh, we could use this, we could use that. And I remember there was one time we were there and Bruno was like struggling to come up with some lyrics, and I helped him come up with some lyrics for a song that we were working on. And that was a song they actually turned into a single, using some of the lyrics that I helped come up with. So I was like, oh, like, can I get credit? After I got kicked out of the band, I was like, oh, can I get credit? Like, I'm not asking to get paid. I just want to be recognized for like my contribution. And he basically just like, remember this was like maybe early days of Facebook, or it might have even still been MySpace. Like, he was just like, no, you're not going to get credit for anything. Like, you didn't write any of that. Like, just basically denied it. And like, I don't know. It's water under the bridge now. It's like, I don't have any...
Yeah, but those experiences really make kids to grow up fast.
Yeah.
When you get those hits and like, okay, so people can be assholes.
Yeah.
People can stab you in the back, and it must have been difficult.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was just more confusing than anything, because we were so... I mean, in reality, it's so weird because it was only like maybe 2 years of my life, like, but we were really close, when we're spending 3 days a week together and traveling together, and but nothing but the best, wishes for those guys. Everything's come a long way since then. I'm pretty sure Bruno is making his own music now under like a stage name, and it's like doing like cool stuff, like, so.
How do you think it shaped you, like, as a person?
Well, like I said, I just feel like it taught me to be more like conscious of how I behave and how I talk to other people and how I might be interacting with people, because you never know the way you're behaving, how it might be affecting someone else. You might think you're being totally normal, and someone else is like, oh, that guy's a fucking dick. Like, I can't stand that guy, you know? Like,
I mean, I agree with you 100%. It also, I think it's also difficult because, as you said, like, you don't know. And you don't know what is happening in the mind of other people. And we live in a society where, like, or I don't know if it's like times or whatever, but or each culture, but dude, just tell me, you know? Like, instead of cutting anything, just tell me, you know, like, you're doing this, can you change it? Because, like, the next step is to get away from this, or I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's, like, I see it more and more, like, for the sake of politeness, is kind of like, I'm not going to tell you what affects me, I just prefer to cut ties with you. And it's like, dude, like, that's so fucking, like, it's worse. Like, it's really...
Well, like, and that's the weird thing, too, is, like, when they presented the contract to us at first, like, they were like, this is just a draft. Like, this isn't final. If you have suggestions or changes or there are things you don't like, you tell us, and then we'll work up something that works. And then, so my parents were like, okay, well, obviously, this stuff about, like, not getting paid and, like any equipment that you use has to be returned in the condition we lent it out to you. Otherwise, you have to pay for it. Like, just weird stuff like that. And my parents were like, obviously, like, okay, well, that stuff needs to change. And then they never presented a second draft. I was out before that even came around. So it's like...
Yeah, it's ruthless, that environment. Later, like, how did you jump from the bass to drums? And what happened there?
Yeah, well, after that, I didn't play music for a little bit. But then, God, I don't even know how this happened, but... Well, I still played bass for a little bit after that. I played in another band when I was like early high school days, and I was playing bass in that band with a couple guys that I can't even remember how I met now at this point, but that's where I met a very close friend of mine, this guy Josh Johnson, who's now playing drums for Winds of Plague, who are a very successful like hardcore band, metal band, and he's fucking killing it. And we became really good friends, and in high school, I joined the marching band. I did start playing drums when I was in that band, Drive A, the teenager band. Like, okay. Because what would happen was I really got enamored with the drums, even though I played bass in that band. And so, like, when we would take breaks from rehearsing, everybody would go upstairs to have, like, a soda and a snack or something, and I would immediately get on the drum kit. Okay. And I would just play for, like, an hour or something, just, like, figuring it out on my own. And so much so that they would they'd be on the PA or whatever from upstairs, like calling the phone downstairs and being like, Emory, get the fuck off the drums, like come hang out or whatever. And like, yeah, I would just play for like, so that's where I really like cut my teeth, so to speak, on that. But I really didn't start learning about the drums until high school when I joined concert band. And then the percussion instructor came to me one day and he said, we really need people for Drumline. So you should come out and audition for Drumline for the marching band. Yeah. So the next year, my sophomore year of high school, I went out for Drumline, and I did that the next 3 years of high school. So I did Drumline in high school, and that's where I learned how to like read music and learn like the fundamentals of...
Did you feel different when you approached to the drums than when you were playing bass? Like more like a calling?
Not like feeling different. Like I've always been a good bass player, but I was never like my most natural instrument. I mean, I like playing the bass. It's a lot of fun, but I never learned like by the book, like how to play. I never learned how to read music like in that way. I don't know how to read guitar music, right? I don't know how to read piano music or anything like that, but I can read drum notation. I'm definitely like a more naturally gifted drummer. It's just kind of in me. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
But no, the approach, I mean, Drumline is really what changed it all, because that's where I learned about repetition and about discipline and about, like, in marching band, you really have to be on top of your shit. You have to play together as a group, and you have to be really, really disciplined, right? And so that taught me about, like, we would spend a lot of time just going over the same section of music over and over and over again until it was perfect, right? Because it is about perfection. You're being judged on that. So that kind of changed my approach to a lot of things, to life really, and just to music in general. Like, music is fun and it's cool to jam and have fun, but also like if you want to be serious, you have to approach it as a craft, like it's something you do over and over again until you get better. That's the only way to get better, is to practice, right? You don't just get good just by doing it. Like, I sucked at the drums when I first started, obviously. And I sucked at the bass when I first started. You have to practice and practice. And so Drumline was really what taught me how to approach it differently, as something you really have to work at if you want to be good at.
Yeah, it just reminded me about like this book. I don't remember the writer or the title. That I'm very good at names. But they talk about this rule, about the 10,000 hours rule.
Oh,
or something
Malcolm
like
Gladwell.
Yes. Do you believe in that idea?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I don't know if there's really any science behind it, but
yeah, I mean, the thing is that he put some, like, he gives some examples, but also, like, there have been some other people and other books kind of, like, trying to say, like, yeah, what he's doing, like, it's kind of not exactly like that, and there are some other examples.
I'm sure it's not 10,000 hours exactly.
Yeah, of course, yes,
right?
That's for sure, like, everybody...
But I do believe that, like, the more time you put into... But, at the same time, like, there's just some people who just...
Exactly.
Never...
Or they can never learn.
Or they can never learn.
Sides.
I mean, and it's kind of, like with drumming or like rhythm-based things, like you either have good rhythm or you don't, is kind of my opinion. I don't think it can be, like you can learn the rules, but if you don't feel it inside you, like you can't, it's not like, I'm trying to think, like it's not like math or something, where like if you study enough, or like history, where if you just memorize the dates, then you're fine. Like,
yes.
But I guess those things aren't really like crafts either. I don't know. Like,
I understand what I mean. There are some things that you just got it. Like you just.
Yeah, you can either do it or you can't. Like, But, I don't know. Bass is a little different. I've always kind of been like, anybody can learn how to play the bass.
Yeah, that's the point that I was trying to make. Like, it just looks like it's some sort of, like, different, like, completely different.
It is kind of different. I mean, there's the thing with the bass. It's like, okay, it's less strings than the guitar. You usually only have to play one string at a time. But to be a really good bass player, you have to be in that pocket. You have to find that groove.
Yeah, but do you really need to be really good to make your living out of it? Like to be in a band?
No. I mean, Philip, for example, who was on an episode you just recently did, he plays bass with like hip-hop groups.
Yeah.
And he's not a bass player. He's a trumpet player. And it's just because these guys are his buddies that they like having him around. And they were like, yeah, fuck it. You can, as long as you can do it, like, and not suck, then like, that's all that really matters. It's kind of cool. Like, you can be a really good bass player as long, you don't have to be fancy and doing a bunch of like, playing a bunch of different notes and stuff. As long as you can just be in the pocket and lock in with the drummer, then like, that's all that really matters, right?
Yeah.
But, drums is definitely, it requires a lot more coordination. You have to get all four of your limbs involved. You have to really think.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But you could also be, look at like Meg White from the White Stripes, for example.
Yeah.
Like, she was what my dad would call a real meat and potatoes drummer.
Okay, can you explain that?
Yeah, no frills. No, she wasn't doing crazy fills and crazy like technical stuff where you're like, whoa, what the, like, that band Rush?
Yes.
Yeah, so that drummer is not a meat and potatoes drummer. That's the opposite. He's all the fixins, he's doing all kinds of crazy, he's filling the space constantly. He, have you ever seen a picture of his drum kit? Neil Peart? There's like 20 pieces of stuff, and it's like he's always, he's doing crazy stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that's the opposite. Meg White is just boom, batch, boom, batch, just backbeat, lay on the kick drum and just solid, nothing extra. And so.
And what do you think is better, man? Like to be very good at being, not the bass, but like, the background of the music, or to really try to aim to the center and drag the attention to your
It depends.
solos.
It depends on the band that you're playing in. It depends on what the music calls for. right? So like that's why like a lot of drummers, their favorite drummer for a lot of people, especially drummers of like my dad's age and a little younger than him, Ringo from the Beatles is their favorite drummer because he was the best guy at doing exactly what the music needed and nothing more, right? And he was so impeccable with his time and being in the pocket, being in the space. Sometimes being a good drummer is knowing when not to play, right? Or just how little you do, right? So like it's not always about doing all crazy. And he was a really good drummer, but there were like jazz guys who were playing at the same time as him who would blow him out of the water in terms of their technical skill, right? And those guys also have to have really good sense of time and pocket and space. But it's just different because jazz and what the Beatles did were calling for different things, right? Okay. They didn't need the same. You couldn't go into playing like really fast-paced swing jazz with the same mentality. I mean, maybe you could, but you would have to spice it up a little bit. You couldn't be as simple. And so, but I think I go back and forth. Sometimes I'm like, simplicity is king and just keep it smooth, keep it simple, keep it locked in. And then sometimes when we write a song, it's like, okay, here's an opportunity to show my chops a little bit. Okay. Just depends on what the music calls for.
It's kind of like being a team player, right? Like there are so many that is like, I want to shine and I want to it becomes just about them, like in each play.
I think being a drummer is you're the ultimate team player. Like you really have to, because you're there. I mean, the purpose of a drummer is to keep everyone in time. That's the whole point, is you're laying down the tempo. You're keeping it all together. And obviously it's evolved in the days since military marching bands or whatever, but you're still there to support everyone else. It's not about you. It's about making the rest of the band sound good. And
what do you think about this movie that became very famous, like Whiplash? Probably you watch it.
I haven't seen it, actually.
Oh my god!
Yeah, I know.
Need to see it.
I know, that's what everybody says. So I can't really talk about it because I haven't seen it. All I will say is that I heard it wasn't very good from like other musicians, other drummers especially. Okay. Were like, it was unrealistic and like. I
mean, the dude started to bleed. Like, does that happen?
Yes, I've made myself bleed. I mean, sometimes it's as simple as like you're playing and you accidentally hit one of your fingers on the metal part of the drum, right? And so you just cut your skin open and you bleed. Or sometimes you get blisters when you play drums a lot. Like my hands around like the palm where my fingers meet my palm, they're like really leathery and rough. I've got a lot of blisters, a lot of time spent with sticks in your hands. Okay. And sometimes you'll have a blister and it pops while you're playing and it starts bleeding. Okay. Yeah, so that's what that would be from. I mean, it's not like he's literally. You'd have to play for a really, really long time at one time without stopping to like make your hands bleed from being like raw. Like, and no. I don't know if it's based on a true story or whatever, but like no band director would let that happen because the health and safety of your musicians comes first before the music at the end of the day.
I mean, I was talking with a friend a long time ago because, like that movie's not that recent. My friend also plays drums and he went for jazz. His family is also coming from like musicians and stuff like that. They played, I think, classical music, but he just went for jazz. And we were talking about that, and he's like, no, like, not at all. Like, it's just not accurate at all. But it's just very interesting for me to the people that actually focus on music and they don't kind of sell out or something like that. And they kind of try to preserve some sort of integrity, which I think is really valuable. Like in your case, with what was happening with my friend, that he's just like he likes jazz. Like, he can go for some other kind of music that can give him more money, but he just loves jazz. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, like in any kind of art, like it happens even for writing. Like you can just go for what is popular and make money, or try or make a living, or really be true to yourself and say like, you know, like this is what I want. It's good that there are people that are coming, but I know that it's not as mainstream as the rest. And I think that there is like a very high value on it. Like I don't know how it's right now the market. You can tell me better, and if you see it, if it's better than it used to be with the record labels. Like, of course, there still are record labels, but like it looks like nowadays everybody can just put their music on some streaming service like Spotify and make a bulk out of it. Like, what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, it's been really bad for like regular bands, like the band that I play in, and regular musicians, because there isn't really any money in Spotify.
Okay.
You know, like every time someone listens to one of your songs, it's like 0.1 of a penny, right? So they have to listen to it 100 times before it even becomes 1 penny.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
So it's like somebody could listen to your song like 100,000 times, and that's like $10 or something. I'm probably not doing the math right, but like, so there's like no money in Spotify. But now it's like the only option out there. There's not really.
Yes.
You basically have to just like give your music away for free and just hope. Like the labels are dead. They're like, the labels have no power anymore. There's no really, especially for rock music, like there's no big label that's going to come and give you a bunch of money to make a record. And even still, the way that was working in like the early part of last decade and in the 2000s, like a lot of people had a misconception, like once you get on a label, that means you've made it and you're going to start making money. No, the label gives you money so that you can go into the studio and make a record. Every single cent that they give you, you have to make back from record sales. They take all that first, and then you start making money if you keep selling records. So if you don't make it, like, so let's say if they gave you a bunch of money to make a record and the album flops, like nobody buys it, then they're going to restructure your contract with the label so that, okay, well, now you owe us 4 albums because we never got the money back from the first album that we paid for. It's like a loan, like when you take out a loan to go to school or something like that.
You become kind of like a slave.
Yeah, you become stuck with that label, and it might limit your creativity, or then they might start bringing in a producer who's like, okay, well, now we need to turn you into a pop act because we need to make sure we make money, right? Like, so stuff like that can happen. And so the label system was kind of predatory in its own way.
Okay.
And so that's why I think around 2009, 2012, like you started to see a lot of bands go the alternative or indie route, right? Where you go to an independent label, not one of the big labels, or you just do it yourself.
Okay.
You know, you book the studio time, you pay for everything up front, so you don't owe anybody any money after it's all said and done.
Yeah. The thing is that the way you describe it, like, yes, you own money, but also like they kind of give you the
infrastructure. Yes. So there was that aspect of it. The label, most of the major labels also worked with major distributors. So they were the ones who were going to get all your CDs into a record shop like Tower Records or I can't think of another big record shop that there was. But like, you know, like Barnes & Noble used to sell records, and like you still have Amoeba and stuff like that. But now, because of streaming and because of download, like nobody buys CDs anymore.
That's crazy.
So that doesn't matter anymore. Even if you get on a big label and they can help you with their distribution and their advertising, or they can pay to put, you know, you in a magazine or whatever, or get your song in a video game. I mean, that's actually pretty good, is getting your song in like a video game or a movie or commercial.
Okay.
That's like one of the few places.
That's the good shit.
Yeah, that's one of the few places there is money anymore, because that stuff is usually like, I don't know anything really about this stuff, so I'm kind of just talking out of my ass here, but
okay.
If you get your song in a commercial, I think usually that stuff is regulated like by unions,
okay.
Right? So you have to get paid a certain amount every time the commercial plays,
yeah.
And it diminishes, but it's royalties. You know, it's like if you are in a commercial as an actor, right? Like your fee is negotiated by the union if you're with SAG or whatever, and you get a certain amount of money set. There's nothing like that for streaming, right?
Do they really make a lot of money? Like, how can I say, like, we're talking about business in which Spotify gets all the money, or as a business that is like, dude, like, we're giving you this amount, but we are not getting too much either. Like, how is it?
You mean like if your song is in a commercial, or like for actors?
No, like, for example, for, like, let's just say in Spotify, that they give you like 0.0000. of a cent, 0.001 of a cent. It's because they are just greedy, or it's because like this industry is just like we can just do this?
No, well, I mean, they are. It is greed, definitely. Like, think about it. Every Spotify subscription costs, what is it? It's like $10 a month.
Yeah.
So they're getting $120 out of every person who uses it, and there's millions of people on Spotify. So you start doing that math, and that starts to add up really quick.
Yeah.
And then, but the money that's like, okay, we've been on Spotify for like probably almost 6 or 7 years now. Chatrooms.
Okay.
And we've made like probably less than $500 off of all the streams we've gotten. And it's not a lot. We don't have a ton of streams, but like one of our songs has over 100,000 streams.
Yes.
So that's when you start doing that math, it's like, it's okay, something's not right there.
Yes.
Like it doesn't really make sense. Then Spotify, the people who own Spotify have, they just bought the Ringer, that sports
it's crazy, right?
company, right? It's like, where are they getting the money for that?
Yes.
So it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. They've now they're not just music, but like they do podcasts. How much money did they give Joe Rogan, for example? What was it, like $100 million contract?
That's a crazy contract,
right? So like, well, how come that money's not going back to the people who make your site, your app successful in the first place? Spotify would be nothing without music. But again, we're just some fucking local band from Los Angeles. Nobody cares if we're on Spotify or not. So they don't give a shit if we're, it doesn't matter. If we pulled our music from Spotify for whatever, for principle or because we're not getting enough money, they're gonna be like, who?
Yeah.
What? We don't.
If you have the power, then they listen to you. If not, it doesn't matter if you're right. Like it just doesn't matter.
And it's like a catch-22. Like, because, okay, we're not really making any money off of Spotify, but also that's one of the only ways people can listen to our music.
It's such a fucked up conundrum. It's kind of like, okay, I don't believe in this system, but I need to be on it. Like, it's the only
You
system.
have to participate.
It's so fucked up.
Yeah, it really is.
It's crazy.
Like we sell our music's on Bandcamp, which is like a smaller music site where you can donate or buy the music so that you have permanent access to it. It's not just you can download it, so it's on your computer.
Okay.
So it's a good alternative to Spotify. But like we don't really make any money off that either. We've made a couple $100 probably from people. We put our music up on there, and you can buy it for a donation, and you choose how much you want to pay. So you can pay 50 cents, or you can pay $5 or $15 if you want. Usually people are pretty fair. They pay like $6 or $7 for 4 or 5 songs, but it's it's still.
Yeah.
A CD used to be what, $20 when it first came out?
And also
$14?
It doesn't look like it's as popular as Spotify. Like
probably
everybody, even here in Albania, Spotify, probably somebody will know about it.
Mm-hmm. It's nowhere near as popular. So now all the money is in touring, and selling merch, like touring, but you have to be able to make money from those shows, which a lot of people at our level don't. And then merchandise, which is also really hard to make money off because you have to spend money to make money, and it's just it's a big investment to like buy a bunch of t-shirts, and then you have to ship them to people, and you have to, it's like.
Yeah, and also it kind of creates a division, right, between the popular music and the one that is not popular, but that creates like a society that only listen to one kind of music, like in general. Because some people were telling me, like we live in an era like, dude, like you can make movies and post it in YouTube, and you're like, yeah, you're right, but all that shit costs money and time and shit like that, and eventually somebody that maybe in 2 years will have a great idea, maybe he started 2 years earlier, and it's like, dude, like I just can't survive to reach my potential. But most of people just listen to the same music or the same kind of music. Nowadays I don't even know, like I just stick with the music that I used to like.
Yeah.
There are so many that are popular that is like, okay, I'm just listening the same kind of style that the other one and the other one and the other one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of funny because some people say it's like, we live in an era that everybody can share their content or their music or whatever. But on the other hand, like it's so difficult to make a living out of it.
Yeah, it's like impossible. I mean, like, we've gone on tour a couple times, but this was all in the early part of last decade. ever since all of us, or most of us, like I moved out of my family's home in 2016 into an apartment, and so I had to start working full time just to be able to afford rent. And at the end of the month, I would have, like $50 or $100 left in my pocket, and I wouldn't have be able to save any money. And to go on tour, you have to have money, right? Like you have to be able to feed yourself for 2.5, 3 weeks, however long you're going to be gone. And you have to pay rent. You have to think about how you're going to pay rent when you get back or while you're gone, depending on when you're gone. And when you're a band at our level, and a lot of people that I know, you're not getting paid when you play shows on tour. You go on tour, and usually the promoter, like the show might get canceled, so you just drove, 120 miles for nothing and wasted all that gas, or the promoter just like stiffs you at the end of the show, like, yeah, sorry, enough people didn't show up, so I can't pay you,
Fuck, that happens.
Yeah, it happens a lot. And sometimes you get lucky and you get $400, but it's like, you're splitting $400 between 5 people. And most of it has to go towards gas anyway to get to the next place, because you're driving in a van and you're hauling a rented U-Haul with all your amps and all your shit in it. Yeah. And so you're getting terrible mileage, and you have to refill it's never ending costs, and it's like a lot of people don't realize how much money out of your own pocket goes into being in a band or trying to be a musician, It's expensive, and we do it because we love it, because we love performing, we love playing live, and it's important to us. We're passionate about it. But I've never been at a point where I was making any sort of money where I could say, okay, I can quit my job.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, that's the reality. You still have to work a day job, and you have to do what you're doing. And that just makes it harder, because then you don't have time to spend working on your craft, right? So it's like, and you're stressed out from work, or you're just tired all the time, and it's like,
we live in such a society that is like such a, I don't know if I should use the word like toxic, because it's like very misused, but like this kind of being positive in some way, it kind of becomes toxic. It's like, no, you can do it. No, motherfucker. Like, no. Like, really. Like, when you see these videos, like, if you can dream it, you can achieve it. Well, yes, you. But you are 1 out of 1,000. That means that 999, not everybody do it.
And let me look at your finances. You, who's making this video, do you have someone who's paying all your bills and paying for your apartment and helping you, survive, so you can make these dumb videos, like telling people they can achieve their, it's like, this is kind of like a thing in LA too, like some people you see who do make it, like they're people who can afford, like, maybe their dad pays for their apartment, so they don't have to work a job during the day, so they can just spend all their time writing music. And like, not to knock these people down, like if you're lucky enough to have that, that's great, so then you can focus on what you want to do. But that's not the reality for a vast majority of people. And like, me and my bandmates were 5 working class dudes, like I work in a kitchen, another guy works as like a property manager for an apartment complex, right? So like, basically his job is to like keep the property clean and like maintained and stuff. And like 2 of the other guys were working like as janitors for some time. And our singer works in like an after school program, just like working with kids. He's not a teacher, he just works in an after school program. Like, none of us went to college really in any meaningful sense. None of us have degrees. So it's really hard for us just to maintain roofs over our heads in our normal lives. Like, even if we weren't trying to be in a band, it's hard enough to just survive month to month as it is, with enough money to feed yourself and to have groceries. And if like something gets fucked up with your car, then that's like, oh shit, am I gonna have enough money to pay rent this month? Like, part of that's living in Los Angeles. It's really expensive, but that's also the reality for a lot of people in America. Like, yeah.
And is it true that if you want to make it, LA is the place to make those kind of like artistic kind of things?
I mean, yeah, I guess so. It's where like the industry is for the most part. But like, it's like we were talking about, like, what does that even mean anymore? Because record labels don't mean shit. And, like, I guess, like, yes and no, because like now what we were talking about, how like you can do it yourself now. You can just go into your bedroom and you can set up your own recording equipment. You can make your own album on your computer. You could do that from, some little town in Minnesota. You don't have to be
Yeah, but I mean, it's also like, imagine if you if you hang out in a place and, I don't know, Kenya West just say like, hey, dude, I like you and I will, just make a Insta story about your band. Like, instantly you become like, fuck it. But I don't know how much that Hollywood idea of the, pretty
it's like
woman.
I don't think it's really like that. I mean, not for the kind of music that we play anyway. Maybe if we were like a boy band or something, or we were trying to do like some hip hop thing or something that was like more in the mainstream, right? You know what I mean? Like, or if we were like the Chainsmokers or something like some techno or whatever, like DJ thing, like, I don't know, it would be different, right? But it's like a lot of my favorite bands from like when I was in high school and my early 20s and stuff, most of them came from places like Philadelphia or like smaller towns outside of Philadelphia or like Boston or the Midwest, like smaller towns in the Midwest, because it's almost like, I don't want to say this to be mean, like there's not as much to do in those towns on any given like Friday or Saturday night. So everybody who's into the same things as you are, like, so everybody who likes punk music, if you live in, like, say if you go to school at KU, in God, I'm blanking on the city, but where KU is in Kansas, right? Everybody who likes punk music, if there's a punk show happening on a Friday night, everybody's going to go to that show. So you're automatically playing to like the entire population of kids who are into that same thing. Okay. If you like punk music in Los Angeles and there's a punk show happening, 17 miles away at like a house or at a venue or at a bar, well, there might also be one happening 2 miles away from you. That's much closer. You don't have to get in your car and drive for 45 minutes or an hour. Okay. And then you're like, okay, if I drive for an hour, then I can't drink because I got to drive back. So it's like, there's just so much other stuff going on. Yeah. That it's like much harder to make an impact.
Fighting for a spot among like a lot of people that they are like struggling for the same.
And there's a lot of good bands, and like over the last decade plus that I've been playing music in Los Angeles, I've met so many cool people, seen so many cool bands, and I've watched bands like break up that were like, oh man, those guys were fucking sick. Like, I wish they were still a band because I loved them. They were cool guys. And it's like, yeah, you just can't do it anymore because, the drummer has a kid now and he has to think about like, okay, now I have to really make money because I have a kid. I can't spend time playing music anymore, So it's like, or like, the singer got married and like his wife wants him to like be more serious about, it's like,
can you imagine all those songs that they just end up not happening?
Yeah, that are just like lost.
Lack of support, or all those bands that could have been like great, and it's just like, like I just can't make it.
Yeah,
it's just hard.
It's really, and like I'm sort of at a crossroads sort of myself. That's why I'm here in Europe now, and I'm going to be traveling Europe for most of this year, and it's like I don't really know what's going to happen with the band when I get back. Like the other guys, I think they're still playing and they're still writing, but like we haven't played a show since before COVID started. Yeah. And it's because it's just been like there haven't really been any opportunities in LA, and there were still restrictions until pretty recently, and it's just really hard to know what's going to happen. And like you've just seen so many bands, like, not give up, but like just realize like, okay, this isn't going to happen. Like I got to do something else now.
Yeah, it's difficult. Like I remember my friend, he came to visit me one day a long time ago. He was coming from France to Mexico. We hung out, and then when he was leaving, he asked me like, do you think like in your field, like do you think like what do you think is going to happen? Like as a journalist, blah blah. Do you think like you will reach a certain level and stuff? And we're talking, and then I asked him like, why you are asking me this? And he was telling me, the thing is that I had an idea in my mind of what was going to happen with my life as a drummer, and I just realized that it's not going to happen. Like it is weird because it was like a very honest moment when he said like, listen, like I really do the math right now. I'm doing the math right now. This is just not going to happen. Like this is the level I'm going to stay, and it fucking sucks that if I want to have like a different standard of living, I will need to jump to another thing, or I can continue doing this, but I can definitely I need to reduce my expectations about like the quality of life. Mm-hmm. I mean, he chose, as far as I understand, he chose the latter, and he's still playing. But definitely, like, it's a life that is not what you expect in one point of your life.
Yeah, definitely.
It's hard. Like, it looks like it's hard.
It is. It is really hard. Yeah, I kind of always was like, you know, I like playing music because I'm passionate about it. I don't really care if I make money doing it. Like, would that be cool? That would be awesome. Yeah, it would be great. But, you know, it's just like, it is what it is. And like, I don't really care if I have to like work a regular job, you know, and as long as I get to play music on the side. But still, like, I really wish I could do what my dad does, because he plays drums for a living, and he's had to work other jobs here and there to support his family, right? But I don't have a family right now, and he's been playing drums professionally basically since he was like 20 or 18, you know, and it was a different time then. It was the 70s, and he plays in a genre that is a little more like, if you fit into that niche, if you have a skill, then like you can always find a job. And so he's gotten really lucky, and he came out into Los Angeles in the mid-70s, and he's been able to find work. And things just, he plays like blues and country music, you know, and like things just haven't changed as much for that. Like you can always go to like a bar and find a blues band playing, because it's music that people like to listen to while they're drinking, or music you can kind of dance to, you know, like for like older people. So it's just, it really shows the difference in the eras, you know, like things have changed so much. And like when he moved to Los Angeles, his rent in Hollywood was like $400 a month. You can't find that anywhere now, you know? It's like things have just skyrocketed so insanely. So it's like, it's just really, really hard to do both at the same time, living a regular life and trying to play music.
How would you describe, for somebody like me that doesn't really know too much about music, how would you describe like the genre that you are in?
Well, what would you say? Like,
I would say that for me, it has reminiscences from the music that I used to listen to in the 90s. Like, it has like some sort of like cool, I don't know if like surfer, but like cool kind of like chill vibe. Maybe like a skater kind of vibe. Like, I don't know how to say it, but like that.
Yeah, I mean, when we first started playing together, actually, it's funny, when I first joined the band, we had a different name, actually. We had a different drummer, and I was playing on the bass when I first joined the band in 2013 or 14. Okay. I can't quite remember when it was. And we were much heavier back then, actually. Like, so the guy who plays bass for us now, Andres, he was like our screamer. You know, so he did like the screaming.
It was like black metal or something?
No, not black metal, just heavier than it is. And it was still like punk, but like, you know, like emo, screamo, whatever they call it, you know, like hardcore. Like,
there is something called screamo?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
You didn't know?
No, man.
Like, yeah, so just like emo, but heavier, right? Like, just like with some like breakdowns, or like just like.
And it's called screamo.
Well, that's not what I would have called us, but people would call it that. Yeah, like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's a thing. It's a thing. You know, it was like really popular in like the late 2000s, like 2007, 2008, like 2009, like, and like a lot of those bands that played on like the Vans Warped Tour and stuff, like, were those kinds of bands. And then after a while, the drummer left because he was having some health issues, so I switched over to drums, and I was like, if we want to, it's kind of like what you talked about, like selling out almost. Like, I was like, look, we need to be a little more honest about what we're doing, and like, if we want to actually maybe make some money doing this, and like maybe get somewhere and get some fans, like, we need to change our style a bit. Like, we need to stop screaming so much. And eventually that stopped like altogether. Like, you've heard our music, there's no screaming anymore. I mean, there's some parts where it gets a little louder, there's a little bit of aggression, but it's not like, it's not something that like if your parents, they'd be like, what, turn this off, you know, like it's not offensive to listen to.
Yeah.
And so we made a really pretty big like style shift and went more like, you know, our music is like vaguely poppy, like it has that pop structure, you know, that A-B formula. Okay. And, you know, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, you know, it's very formulaic. All pop music is kind of structured like that.
Okay.
But we still keep our like punk roots, you know, like we still want it to be like I drum fast and I drum loud, I play hard, like, and when we play live, like we give a lot of energy, we're jumping around and we're going crazy, and like at the end of the shows I might like kick one of my drums over, you know, like we still like keep it high energy, but the music we want it to be a little more accessible, I guess. So like when people ask me what type of music we play, I usually just say like punk or pop punk, you know.
Okay.
But like, you know, I don't know, there's so much nuance that goes with that. Genre is so subjective, right? So like I feel like when I say pop punk, people think of Blink-182. Okay. And like we all liked Blink-182 when we were little and still do. But I don't think we really sound like that, you know, like it's not quite like that. So, you know, we definitely like, we have a lot of influence like from Nirvana. They're like one of our big influences. And who else? Like we all have very different influences, you know.
And you used to have the hair of Kurt Cobain, right? Before?
Yeah, I did. I had really long hair.
Did you do it on purpose, like Kurt Cobain style? Like?
No, I don't know when I started growing my hair out. Probably like in 5th grade, I think I started growing my hair out. Yeah. Just because my mom used to always like get my hair cut for me, like, and she would just tell the barber. So I think it was just my way of like finally having my own identity. I started skateboarding in the 5th grade, and so there were some older kids that I knew that were really good at skateboarding, and I would kind of like tag along with them, and they all had like long hair. It was kind of just like the style then in like 2005, 2006.
Yeah.
So I grew my hair long, and it was like really long, like down past my nipples, like really long and perfectly straight, like really. A lot of people would say to me like, "Oh, you look like Kurt Cobain," like, yeah. So, but it wasn't intentional. I didn't start. I mean, no, I was already listening to Nirvana by then, but
maybe subconscious.
Yeah, maybe. I guess so, probably. But I don't. Yeah, I wasn't like I was trying to.
You don't have any shotguns in your house, right?
No, I don't.
That's good.
But I had long hair until my sophomore year of high school, because then when I joined marching band, for the competitions, you're not allowed to have any hair showing. So it either has to be cut above your ears, or you have to put it into a hairnet, like put it in a bun and tie it up and like put it in a hairnet.
So they have like a bunch of rules.
Yeah, they have rules because you're being judged. When you go to the competitions in marching band, you're being judged on like appearance, and like, you know, you have to march in those formations and lines, and you make like shapes and do, you know, you march on the field and do stuff. And yeah, you can't just have a bunch of people with their hair showing. So all the girls had to put their hair up, and if you were a guy and you had long hair. So I was just like, you know, I was like 16 or 15 or whatever. I was like, I don't want to put my hair in a net or whatever, so I just cut it, and then I have pretty much had shorter hair ever since. Yeah, every once in a while, you know, it grows.
How good were you at skating?
You know, nothing special. I was all right when I was younger, and it was easier to like throw my body down things. You know, like I really like to like jump down stairs and like big like gaps and stuff like that. And
I don't know why that for me is a very Californian activity.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. But you know, skating's really popular like in New York and like on the East Coast as well. Like it's a big thing over there, and in the Midwest too, like places like Oklahoma and I mean, Texas and Missouri, you know, Missouri, like, yeah, there's skaters all over the place. But, it started in California in the 70s, and it is definitely a very California thing.
I just imagine, like, people, like, close to the beach, you know, just, like...
Yeah, definitely goes with the lifestyle.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. But, yeah, no, I wasn't never good enough to be, like, pro or anything like that, or even...
But good enough to impress one or two girls.
Well, certainly. Yeah, of course. It's not that hard to impress people with a skate. I mean, if you can, like, most people are impressed if you can just do an ollie, you know, like...
Oh, what the fuck is an ollie?
Just like when you just jump with the board and it sticks to your feet.
Okay, it's called ollie?
Ollie. Yeah. It's one of those things like rhythm, like we were talking about. You can either...
Yeah, either you have it or you don't.
Either you have it or you don't. I don't even remember, like, a lot of people talk about how, like, hard it is to stand on a skateboard even, like, without falling. Like, I don't remember having a phase like that. Like, I was always pretty good at riding the skateboard, and yeah.
And, you know, like, when I was a kid, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were quite something.
Yeah.
And there's one like Michelangelo. He always is in the skateboard, and yeah, I really wanted to try it, but like, nope, that's not for me. Maybe even the music is not for me either. Like I'm like I learned one or two songs in the harmonica, but it's that you said that the harmonica is the instrument of the assholes or something like that.
Yeah, kind of. No, it's not really. It's not. It's just a funny inside joke in like the blues world. Like,
but I definitely think that I missed something there. Like you can notice that I can learn, but I will never be great at it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. You just have to put the time in. Like sometimes. It's, I mean, like the guitar, for example, like a lot of people think they're just going to pick up a guitar and be good at it, like within a short time or whatever. But like, you have to really deal with a lot of pain. Like it hurts your fingers. It hurts to play the guitar, like especially a steel string and not nylon string. Like you really have to press hard and you develop like calluses, you know, like your fingers have to your skin has to get used to it. And then like making the shapes is hard too. And like, you know, I'd say it takes like a good like year or 6 months of like really practicing before you start feeling like you're like getting somewhere. Yeah. And a lot of people just don't want to put that time in. Maybe it's like an American thing of feeling like you just want to be good right away or it's not worth doing. And it's like, you know, like sometimes
it's also a Mexican thing.
maybe it's just, you know,
human nature.
The way people are now. Yeah, I don't know. But like you really have to.
Yeah, now we just want everything instantly, right?
Yeah, you have to earn it. You have to work at it. And so it is like that 10,000 hours thing. Like you have to,
I guess.
You have to practice, you have to try. You can't just give up because it's like, oh, this hurts my fingers. I don't want to do it anymore. Like, you know, like I thought I was going to be playing Smoke on the Water, you know? Like you gotta do it a little more and you gotta learn some chords. You gotta teach yourself some things or take lessons or whatever. I don't know. And then once you get to a certain level, like I spent some time in high school taking guitar classes and building up a base level of knowledge. So like now, I haven't played guitar in like 4 years, like consistently, maybe even longer than that.
But if you take a guitar now, you can play.
I can play some things, yeah. I know enough chords and I remember enough things that it's like, yeah, I can play. My fingers might hurt more than they would normally because I haven't been playing consistently. But yeah, it's like once you get that baseline knowledge down, like I can pick up a bass and I can play, or I can get behind the drums and like maybe I'll be a little rusty at first, but it comes back. It's like riding a bike. It never really goes away once you really learn those things.
Remember, you have to leave tomorrow at 7?
6. Well, no, yeah, we're leaving at 7. Gotta get up at 6.
Just get up.
Yeah.
So you're going right now to?
Kotor. Which is in Montenegro.
Are you excited?
I don't know. I mean, I guess. Montenegro wasn't on our list. It wasn't a place we planned to go.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just because it's easier to, that sounds mean, but like it's easier to get, because we're going to Split after that, which is in Croatia. And so it's easier to get there from Kotor than it is to go straight to Split from here.
What do you mean that you're going to Split?
So after we go to Kotor, we're going to Split, which is a city in...
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to Split.
No, no.
For the people, like, he's traveling with his girlfriend, Nina, so it was like...
Yes, no.
What?
Split is the name of the city.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's close to Kotor, so it's easier to go to Kotor first and then go there. There weren't any direct... or there was a direct bus from Tirana to Split, but it takes like 12 hours. So we were like, okay, fuck that.
Just 2 questions to wrap this up that I ask basically everybody. First, what do you think traveling has taught you so far? What do you think about just traveling the way you're traveling?
Well, I could give a really long answer for that. But, it's not my first time traveling. Like, I lived in Germany for a year when I was younger, in 2011. And before I stayed in Germany, my mom and I traveled around Europe together for a bit, like 2 months or something like that. So that was when I really learned how to travel like I'm traveling now. Learning about, planning ahead, but not too much ahead, because you have to be flexible, and learning how to just go with the flow. And like, if shit happens, then shit happens. And just being able to adapt, really. That's a big thing when traveling Europe, especially in the Balkans. Like, you just have to be ready for kind of anything to happen.
Yeah.
And
trains don't arrive on time. Buses may take another turn.
Yep. Yeah, so you just kind of have to roll with it and just be like, all right, it's fine. It's not a big deal. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not dead. No. I'm not injured. It's not the end of the world. We'll get there when we get there.
Yeah.
And if you end up wasting a little money, like, it happens. Like, it is what it is. But traveling with my girlfriend has been really great because we're, just growing closer all the time and getting to know each other much better. And it's really nice to travel with another person. And it's better when that person's not your mom, because you're not getting annoyed at her all the time for being your mom.
Okay, and the second question I asked you already, but this time you really need to answer. What song do you think would you like people to play to remember you?
That's why you asked me that, so I could think about it.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about it at all.
Holy shit, just out of the blue, like the first thing that it comes to your mind.
I really don't know. I mean, I listened to...
It can be one of yours.
No, that would be so...
Come on.
What kind of blowhard says one of their own fucking songs? Like, come on. I don't know. I listen to so much music and...
Like, I don't know, the way you feel now. Maybe tomorrow it can be another one. You can change it later. But like for now, which one do you think that represents who you are? Or yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess a song that has been really, connecting with me lately, and just really, I think I really identify with and speaks a lot to maybe my worldview or something, is a song called Hope by this artist Alex G. Can't remember what the album's called, but something, I can't remember. But the song is called Hope.
Okay, and why?
It's just a really good song. It's a sad song, and I don't know, I like listening to sad songs because...
I mean, you're screamo, so kind of...
No, not anymore, but yeah, it's a song that just is very introspective, and if I'm remembering correctly, I think it's about a friend of his who passed away. And so, I mean, I think loss is something that everyone can identify with, and it's about loss and remembrance and, thinking about people you love, and just a beautiful song. And yeah, he's just a really good artist, and I've been listening to him a lot lately. And
you like it?
Yeah.
Awesome. Emory, it has been a pleasure. For the people, that in the description there's going to be the link for that song and the link for the playlist of Chatrooms, so they can listen to your songs. Thank you very much for listening. Have a good one. See you around. So, what do you think about today's episode? Don't forget to share your thoughts answering the polls and questions in the Spotify version of this podcast. Remember that in the description there are links to the interviewee song. You can also listen to the Spanish version of this podcast with different guests, or listen to it into different platforms. If you want to watch videos about my travels to different countries, visit my YouTube channel. You can also support me in my Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, or Anchor page. In all of them, my username is Juan Around. In Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and in all social networks, you can also find me as Juan Around. All links are in the description of this episode and in the description of this podcast. Subscribe and share. See you around.
Your booze mean nothing. I've seen what makes you cheer.